In his first game with the Dallas Mavericks, Klay Thompson did not look out of place one bit, putting up 22 points, shooting 6 of 10 from deep, along with 7 rebounds and 3 steals. And what makes those numbers even more promising for Dallas is how he got his shots. Last season with the Warriors, 67% of Klay's three-point attempts were either open or wide open. And even though this is a small sample size, after the first game with the Mavericks, 90% of his three-point attempts were either open or wide open. If this trend continues with Klay next to Luka and Kyrie Irving, we might be about to witness one of Klay Thompson's most efficient seasons shooting the ball. For his first bucket as a Maverick, Klay makes a textbook move, losing his defender and scoring with the pull-up mid-range jumper. This was the toughest shot he took all night long, as here Dallas run an inbounds play for Klay, where Gafford sets the screen and Klay comes off of it, getting just enough daylight to knock down a corner tray. The amount of space Klay will have next to Luka and Kyrie Irving is so great that Dallas will basically not have to run any plays for Klay, as he's going to have so much space so often, but it is nice to have it in your back pocket. These are the looks Klay will get at least 5 times each game, as here off a Luka miss, the ball finds an open Thompson, who makes one from the other side. It's now when Klay found his groove, as he made 5 straight threes, as here Champagnie and Barnes collapse on PJ Washington, allowing the pass to be made for Thompson in the corner for 3 more. This is how Klay was able to impact the game, not just off his shooting, as here off a Wemby miss, Thompson is able to tip the ball to Luka and then run his lane. And because Sohan doesn't get back, Thompson gets another opportunity and cashes it in. Here is a 2-man game between Doncic and Lively, and because Wemby is mismatched on Klay and is the last line of defense, when Klay pops, Victor is not able to follow, resulting in another bomb. As soon as Luka made that pass, he knew it was instantly good. It's crucial that Klay Thompson works out for the Mavericks this season because he can transform how they play. Last season, the Mavericks struggled with floor spacing for Luka and Kyrie Irving in the finals, as the Celtics often ignored players like Derek Jones Jr., Daniel Gafford, and even PJ Washington. Now with Thompson's career 41% accuracy from beyond the arc, he brings the floor spacing required. This season, Klay also told the Mavericks media that he's focused on improving defensively, trying to get his game back to something like it was in his prime. And maybe that could be a little bit of a stretch, but he was able to impact both ends in the first game, highlighted by his 3 steals. The ability to impact the game, compared to what we saw last year from Klay, was probably the most impressive thing about his first game with the Mavericks for me, as on this possession in the first quarter, he was matched up on Victor and was able to get the strip on him, picking up one of his 3 steals. If Klay can continue to impact games beyond just his shooting, that's going to be a massive boost to keep him in the starting lineup and will definitely make him a viable closing option.
As far as getting to the next level, I think they're middle of the road team in the Western Conference.
Really?
Yeah.
They went to the finals last year.
I think they got lucky last year because of matchups.
Okay.
But this year, I think Phoenix is better. The Lakers are going to be solid. I think Dallas is the bottom of the West. 6, 7, 8 seed.
I think Mavericks fans everywhere are rejoicing after hearing that, because we all know how solid Chuck's guarantees tend to be. But are you buying what he's selling? For me, I'm definitely not, and here's why. First of all, people were calling Luka and Kyrie Irving the greatest backcourt in the history of the NBA last postseason. And there was good reason behind that, as they're arguably the best 2 isolation scorers in the game. I also believe that Klay chose the perfect team to join, because not only did Dallas need more 3-point shooting, but with Luka and Kyrie, they're also going to give Klay Thompson an unlimited amount of open shots, as if the defense stays with Klay, they're going to allow Doncic or Irving to get a one-on-one possession, which is just something you don't want to do when guarding Dallas. The backcourt pairing of Luka and Kyrie gets even better when you consider when they score the ball. Luka Doncic is one of the best first quarter scorers in the league, while Kyrie Irving does most of his damage in the clutch, as they complement each other perfectly. Another reason why I think Chuck is wrong about this Mavericks team is because of how they ended last season. To end last season, the Mavericks were the best team in the Western Conference, going 15-1 once Daniel Gafford and Derek Jones Jr. were inserted into the starting 5, as this starting unit provided a great mix of offense and defense. The extra athleticism of Derek Jones Jr. was a plus, but of course, it was the lack of a 3-point shot that ended up hurting his team. If Klay can at least be an average defensive player this season, season, his three-point shot will more than make up for what Derrick Jones gave Dallas a season ago. But despite the Mavericks losing defense with the exchange of Jones Jr. for Thompson, they were still able to get better when you consider the other moves they made. The additions of Quentin Grimes and Najee Marshall were great ones for the Mavericks defense, as they are both above-average defensive players. The only way I think that Chuck's prediction comes true is if Dallas struggle with injuries throughout the season. But then the issue I have with that is you could just say that about any contending team, and it's the same story. If a really good team doesn't have that really good player, they're probably not going to be very good. But let's go back and take a better look of this first game against the San Antonio Spurs. Luka started the game slow, and even though he ended with a Luka-like stat line of 28, 10, and 8, he started the first half shooting just 4 of 14 from the floor for just 9 points, which is very un-Luka-like. As we already mentioned, Luka's usually very hot in the first quarter, but Doncic was able to shake off the rust in the second half, where he would find his groove from beyond the arc, making 4 out of 6 of his triples in that second half for 19 points. For Kyrie, he did make a couple of tough buckets in the game, but other than that, he really never found his shot, going 6 of 17 from the floor for just 15 points in the game. But he was able to pick up 2 steals and a block, as he was still able to make an impact. But this win was earned by the entire team, as guys like Lively, Gafford and Hardy, and the newcomers like Grimes and Marshall all made themselves known. Here it's Maxi Kleber, who's good enough to find the cutting Lively for the slam. Then after some great defense from Gafford on Wemby, Dallas get out and run. And it's Daniel Gafford who is then rewarded, and even though he misses, he hustles back to get a putback slam. The activity of the Mavericks role players is going to be vital for their chances of making another deep run, as this time off a Luka 3, it's Lively who comes flying back in for the putback. High energy plays from the supporting cast is something every contending team needs, but to have that ability to space the floor also is just as important. As here with Irving going downhill, it's Jaden Hardy who's locked and loaded and makes this corner 3. I thought Jaden Hardy was absolutely everywhere in the game, as only moments later off a 2-man game with Lively and Luka, his numbers called again and he answers the call. Because of the lack of defense from the Stars, the role players have to step up for Dallas, and in this game they did. As here with the Spurs trying to feed the big man, it's Gafford and Washington that forced the turnover off the entry pass. And now with the Mavericks out and running, Gafford is able to clean up the Kyrie miss for 2 of his own. But even though the supporting cast has been tasked with defense, Kyrie has been very solid on that side of the floor himself. As earlier in the game he forced an 8-second violation, and then here he picks the pocket of Champagnie as he then dives on the floor to get the ball back to Thompson, who's fouled. These hustle plays coming from your stars is a great sign of chemistry and camaraderie from this Mavericks team. And now it's both of the stars, here trapping Sohan, and Kyrie again picks the pocket, forcing another Spurs turnover. But this is what the stars are paid to do, as here with Lucas seemingly out of options, he isn't, as he makes this ridiculous behind the head pass to PJ Washington, who's good enough to then pay it off. With all this offensive firepower between Luka, Kyrie and Klay, and all of the defense with Gafford, Washington, Lively, Grimes and Najee Marshall, I see the Mavericks being atop of the Western Conference yet again, as that foolish prediction from Charles Barkley is one I'll be keeping the receipt on come mid-April. How good do you think the Dallas Mavericks are this season, and is there a world where you see the Mavericks team finishing in the play-in tournament if they're healthy? Let me know in the comments below.